Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Ron McCall.
And I'm Bryce Runge. I'm Bryce Runge. You laughed. Is that because I jerked when you came through you jolted my body
Really?
through the microphone. I was taken aback.
Really?
Yeah.
I can get a taser.
You know what? You say that I immediately went to the cattle. Is it the cattle prod? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Brad, my brother Brad.
Yeah? Did he use one on you?
Yes.
Way to go, Brad.
No, it's not funny. It hurt, dude. Because my dad was a cow. I'm going to call my dad. My dad still is a cowboy.
Yeah.
He just, unfortunately, is not able to ride horses anymore ever again. But we used to have a horse. He had a horse.
Okay.
And it was about an hour away from where my parents lived. And he'd go out there, and we went out there as well. And they had the arena, and my dad was into roping. And that was so fun, and we'd watch. But sometimes we'd help get the cattle.
Oh yeah, into the chute.
Up there, and we'd use that cattle prod. And Brad would he'd be behind me, and I'd be. And next thing you know, I'm getting zapped. And dude, you're an a-hole, seriously. And he'd pretend like I'm the bull, and he'd try and get on me and like kick that dude. We were rough and tough, but man, that cattle prod, that'll move you. That's what we need these days. We need to zap some people.
Well, I was raised.
You'd go to jail for it, but
Well, I kind of was raised in the adage of spare the rod, spoil the child.
yeah.
And to an extent, and I say this, my mom and dad, and I say this because my sisters were really bad.
Mm-hmm.
I was the good child. I mean, all you have to do is ask me. And I'll tell you that.
Good thing I wore my boots today, along with the country theme, the cowboy thing. I've got my boots on.
Really? Because I thought they were flip flops. But anyway,
nope.
So I thought again, it's kind of interesting. I think of I guess I paint this picture in my mind of how we were raised, my sisters and I, and compared to today, how parents, because we are the parents of today.
Yep.
And I go, my gosh, what's going on? Is poor wimpy parenting the cause for so many problems? And then I begin to kind of reevaluate some of that.
Yeah.
And I go, maybe you can take, because, okay, some of the stuff that came out in the 70s and 80s saying, well, don't spank your kids. Mm-hmm. I think some of the most effective discipline I had with Eric came from not spanking him.
Yeah.
Now, I think there was a couple of times where he would break free and he would run loose, like out into the street, into the parking lot, do something highly, highly dangerous. Mm-hmm. And having been told a couple of times before, hey, don't be doing this.
Right.
Well, then, that was worthy of a attitude readjustment.
Yeah.
But, and growing up, Mom would use a ruler. Dad would use his hand. And a lot of times, I don't think we got smacked near as often as I like to say we were. And when I say we, I'm talking my sisters and I. And what I think was good that Mom and Dad never did was smack us when they were angry.
Mm.
And so, but I look at how, Sherry would discipline her kids, and both her kids were radically, what worked for one really didn't work for the other.
Oh, yeah.
And so, we would use timeout, or I would use timeout on Eric.
Mm-hmm.
His mother never really disciplined him, but I would use timeout. Or one thing that I learned from his daycare provider, well, the toy goes to timeout.
Mm.
And so it was kind of interesting. And so, I don't know, why are we talking about this?
I I don't know, dude. You just brought up a really sore subject. My butt is still sore from when I was a child. I'm not. I can't even talk on about this subject. They'll go arrest my dad.
Well, statute of limitations. But I don't know. I would say, though, that discipline today is different than in the past.
Oh, my gosh. It's night and day. And I would say there is a massive lack of discipline in today's day and age.
But what is discipline? I mean, is discipline simply a hand across the butt?
Well, I'm sure there are different forms of discipline. Like I ran in school suspension. That was a form of discipline.
Sure.
I didn't beat any kids.
I saw the wink. Well, okay. How about this? I got an article here by a guy by the name of Dr. Thomas Lacona. And he has a blog that I found on Psychology Today that specifically talks about discipline. So do you want to explore this?
I don't know. I guess.
Or should I ask Brad for the cattle prod first?
Jeez.
Brad, FedEx it, baby. How about we explore what this Dr. Lacona has to say?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Let's talk about it.
His idea.
Shed some light on it.
Is that we should, when it comes to discipline, focus on character building rather than punishment.
Okay.
And I kind of, where he's going with this is, I think, redirection.
Right.
Punishment for the sake of punitive punishment is not always. I mean, it has its place, I think. I mean,
Right.
as an athlete, I think punitive punishment of, okay, go run a mile.
Mm-hmm.
You drop the ball, run a mile.
Right.
You jump off sides 5 times in a game, go run a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Those kinds of things I can see where as a coach you might do that. And that truly would be punitive. But I think dealing with our own children at home as parents, I think that's kind of what, as I read through the article or his blog, is what he was trying to say.
Okay.
That there are better ways to do this. In fact, he calls it coaching micro habits, do-overs, character conversations, restitution, fair consequences can be beneficial. And I know that my parents would do this because my dad would come in or my mom would come in after the punishment and say, okay, do you know why what you did was wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And they would explain that, hey, yeah, what you did was wrong. I don't remember anyway, getting an immediate punishment. It was go to your room and think about what you did.
Oh, yeah.
And I learned now they did that not because that was the cool thing to do, but because they needed time to cool down or they were going to, beat me 10 times worse. Because out of anger and frustration rather than out of true guidance and education.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of where, again, Dr. Lacona is coming from. And so he says it's our approach. It's not that you don't discipline your kids, but it's the approach that you take and the outcome, trying to get the outcomes that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyway, he says, again, perspective. He says discipline has 2 jobs. 1, to manage misbehavior in the situation at hand, and 2, promote our children's progress in developing character qualities like kindness, respect, responsibility, and self-control, traits that will serve them well throughout their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, yeah, when I, things I do at school, trying to get a kid's attention, So he says the first thing you need to do is build a relationship. With your children, it needs to be that loving relationship.
Right.
It references some of the studies that, I know there are literally hundreds of studies that show that a warm, caring, healthy, responsive relationship between parent and child is linked to the kid's happiness, physical health, mental health, and character development. because again, it's that attachment theory. The stronger that is, the better it is. So engage with your kids in something other than yelling and screaming.
Taking notes over here. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I wondered why you got so quiet.
I was having flashbacks. Sorry.
Oh,
I wish my parents hung out with your parents and implemented the timeout before
okay.
unleashing the belt.
Okay.
No, I think that's spot on. Build a loving relationship. I mean, of course, with your kids, right? And kids in general, and you're in education. It's about those relationships, relationship. But yeah, no, I think that's spot on.
Well, because I think if you've got the trust and the love and the care already established, then the correction can make more meaning.
Well, you could have a healthy conversation, and the one you're disciplining they're going to be more receptive. My parents, my dad, my mom, they love me. They care about me. Right? I think they're going to receive it better, if you will.
Okay. And yes. And I think that's kind of where this guy's, suggesting. I mean, the second thing he suggests is combining in fact, I'm reading quote for word here, combine high expectations with strong support. I mean, there are different kinds of parents. I mean, you can be authoritarian, but I think that's going to head you in the wrong direction.
Okay.
You can be laissez-faire parents, and I think that goes the 180 degrees the opposite direction.
Yeah.
So he suggests being authoritative. And I think this is where my parents kind of did pretty well. This is what I try to do, though I think I wind up more on the authoritarian side.
Oh, geez, yeah.
But in the classroom, at least, I try and be authoritative. But he says, set high bars for expectation, appropriate behavior. This is what I'm expecting of you.
Right.
And so kind of be like a character coach. And so when you're able to do that, you're rewarding the positive behavior. So that way they really enjoy the positive feedback. And when you remind them of that they failed to meet your high expectations, well, look, my expectations are that you can do this. I know you can do this. Don't limit yourself. Move up.
Right.
Don't take the lazy, easy route. Do what is right. And I'm reminded of the old saying that, I guess we can call it erotism, but
yes,
that which is right isn't always easy. That which is easy isn't always right.
Yep.
And so I think that's kind of what they're saying here. Be that coach. Say, excuse me, when you're wanting to interrupt or when you're cutting into somebody. Be pleasant. Excuse me. Oh, pardon me. Oh, sorry. Or as I say, wide load coming through. But anyway, so that way you can, again, you're correcting.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the way. Hey, can I get you to do it this way next time? Just again, it's a respect thing. Because I talk about respect all the time and to the kids in the classroom. Look, I'm going to show you respect, but respect's a two-way street, and I think that's kind of what they're saying here.
Yeah.
Set your expectation. I'm going to expect you to treat other people this way because I'm going to treat you this way.
Yeah.
And so here's why you should do that. So anyway, that's number 2.
Good. Yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
Number 3. Be mindful of what is actually causing the problem behavior. Look at the root cause, not the symptoms. And so, anyway, absolutely. And I struggle with this because, I just do. Because I react to what you've done, not necessarily why you're doing it.
Why you're doing it, yeah.
And so I think if you can, and I think this is what the Dr. Lacombe is saying, if you can kind of explore, hey, why the heck are you acting out of character today? What's going on? Please talk to me.
Right.
And understand where they're coming from, and let's get to the root of the issue rather than why are you acting out.
We have found ourselves doing that more so with Briar. when they're little, they can't necessarily communicate, right? And so we have learned to get a little bit better. Instead of just losing our marbles because they're extra, figure out why. And the schools daycare, they do a good job communicating. Like here's what happened today, some schedule, and then when we really look into the root, and okay, she's acting cray today. Instead of losing it on her, let's go back. And we may ask some of those questions, but we could get a better look at her day through what the school has communicated. Oh, well, she didn't take a nap today. Oh, she didn't eat all of her food. So now she didn't take a nap and she's hungry. So I know what I'm like when I'm hungry. So we could
tired.
Yeah, and tired. Now it's a double whammy. So we could look at those things and maybe, okay, hey, would you like a snack? Would you like something to eat? Let's get your belly full. And let's get your mind right a little bit. Get some nutrients in there, and then we could maybe have a better conversation.
Like the Snickers commercial?
Yes. You're not. Yes. Here's a Snickers bar.
Hey, great. I can bring Snickers, and your kids are going to love me.
Oh, Suzanne always reminds me of that at work. Her friend, Felicia, she's so funny. I could just imagine her. Suzanne was having a rough day and she wasn't acting herself, and her friend came up to her with a Snickers bar, and they both started losing it, laughing out loud, and but it changed the whole rest of her day, she said. But it was funny. But yeah, you're right.
You're reaching the root, and so all right.
Yeah, that's at least we're trying to do that.
Yes,
because sometimes as parents we get really tired, and we may not get a meal in, and we may act cray too, and then unfortunately our kids are the recipient of our negative behaviors.
And yes. I gotta say, it is tough being the adult in the room.
Yeah.
All right, so here's
it's hard for us too, Rod. You're right. Go on. Is what you're going to do. I
want to be a kid forever. Dang it.
Yeah, that would be awesome, huh? What age, though? What age?
Well, I'll create a podcast episode just for that.
Okay, there you go.
All right, so the next thing this doc is saying is that sometimes you can ask the kid, let's try this again. Instead of jumping their case, hey, hold on. Think about what you just said. How about we retry that? And, and I can remember my parents kind of saying something similar to that, as to, you think about what you just said.
Right.
You want to try that again before we go any further? And it's kind of like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
and it's kind of like, oh, my bad. Okay, right. You know what? I am so sorry. Hi. How are you? Hey, if it's okay and it's not too much trouble,
right?
After I clean the house top to bottom and fix dinner and do the dishes, is it okay if I go over to so and so's house?
Right.
I mean, when I first read the title of the article, I was going, oh my gosh, what the heck? What a knucklehead.
Right.
But then as I read through the stuff, I'm going, actually, this is really good because you're building the character, and you're trying to readjust limit the bad behavior. And so,
well, I look at it as a parent. One, it's a privilege that we get to be parents.
Yes.
And our children are literally God's gift to us. And I, as a former coach, a life coach now currently, and I look at it as I'm also a coach. I want to coach you up. But that one you just said, the do-over, I have on a couple times have used this one on Braddock's, is you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. And I got you. With the girls, Suzanne does a really good job with the girls because she was raised this way. She was raised, and her mom was like extreme on manners, and rightfully so. Respect and use your manners. So we both agree on that. That's a non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. You will have manners, and you will implement them and use them daily. And especially with us. And she will say, and she'll look at Briar specifically. Because Briar's that age, right?
Oh,
and
she's 4.
Yeah, she's 4.
Going on 14.
She thinks she runs the roost around here. You were over here the other night. You probably think the same. They probably do. But she will look at her and be like, excuse me? You could have another opportunity to say that correctly.
and I love it. I absolutely love it.
And it's like you can see the wheels spinning.
And
then she'll get it out like slowly, and it's like,
and it clicks. And I totally, absolutely agree with that. All right, so the next one is what he calls character conversation. In which, and again, he talks about the science behind this, but taking the time to make kids aware of how their actions might affect somebody else and helping them develop empathy, develop a conscience, and create moral reasoning. And, I got to say that my parents did this as well. How do you think your words made somebody else feel? Do you think it made them feel happy or sad? Well, if I were to do this to you, how would you feel?
Right.
So why do you think somebody else would feel differently?
Yeah. And
so I really, I've had these kinds of conversations, and over the last few years, I've talked to my students about this. One-on-one conversations of, look, do you really, why are you doing this? Have you thought about how this is being received? And, is there a better way that we could do this, to say this? And it ties right in with the redo.
Yeah.
So, I think I think the redo works even more effectively if you've got this foundation of talking to them about, do you understand what you're actually saying here?
Right.
And getting them to, again, address character issues.
Well, and the other thing too, I think is really important as parents raising kids, that first of all, the brain is extremely complex.
Oh, amen.
And it's not fully developed until 22, 23, somewhere around there.
Some will even argue 25.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So, you got to understand that your child's brain is still developing.
Oh, yeah.
They don't ask, what were you thinking? Because they were not thinking. And that's okay, because that's how the brain was designed. But it's your job as parent, our responsibility to, again, coach, have the character conversation to help them understand, to really enhance their thinking. Because, I'm not throwing stones. I don't have a right to, but we didn't have some of these conversations. In fact, we didn't have any of these conversations growing up. And it was more on the discipline first side, but it's okay. You learn those things, but I'm grateful to, have been in education for a long time, teach on mindsets and growth developments and whatnot.
Well, I think we have a default setting that we parent as we were parented.
Right.
And so again, some of this is based on just time period. And if you think, okay, when did your parents, your parents and my parents were similar in age.
Right.
And so those are the days of spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yeah.
Just beat some sense into them.
Yeah.
And sometimes parents, I got lucky that my parents were not quite that way. They may talk it, but they didn't really walk it.
Right.
But I can see where some parents would. And I think that the overdoing of that led to the Dr. Spock stuff in the 70s and 80s. And, and sometimes, even Sherry goes, you know what? I'm not going to parent like I was parented.
Right.
I'm going to change things up. And so, I think that's kind of where this Dr. Lacombe is coming from. What do we want? What is our desired outcome? And let's channel our discipline into our ultimate outcome.
Right.
And instead of being reactive, be proactive.
Right.
And help this kid become a healthy, functioning adult
Right.
that actually doesn't have a lot of issues later in life.
Right. Well, how can we, again, the outcome, and how can we turn this situation into a positive experience, if you will, or a positive outcome, like you said, because it's definitely there. We as parents have to search for it, look for it, determine how to approach it, and recognize the positive outcome and really coach through it. Anyways, go on.
No, you're spot on, which ties right into the next suggestion, and he calls it the thinking chair, and I think this relates to like
that.
timeout. And I would do this with Eric because Eric would get temper tantrums about, well, why do I have to clean this up? Well, I don't want to go do that. I don't want to eat my vegetables. Well, I want cake for my supper. I don't want to eat whatever it is I had made. And, he would throw his toys or stuff like that. And I would say, well, you know what? I think we need to sit down and I think we need to think about what it is that we're doing. And when you're ready to have a conversation, but right now I want you to go sit down and I'm going to put you, in a chair on the couch. And you're going to sit there and you're going to, I would put him in his room as he got older and I'd say, look, you're going to sit here on your bed and I want you to calm down.
Yeah.
And when you're ready to talk calmly, we'll move forward. And I think that's kind of what this is saying.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing where, he's saying don't call it the timeout, but call it the thinking chair. And so I kind of like this where, just sit down and calm down.
Right.
And let's talk about rationally what it is that, what is it that you want or don't want.
Right.
And instead of, crying or sulking or yelling or whatever misbehaving attitude they're engaging in, stop, go sit in the thinking chair. And now this doesn't work, for a 1 or maybe even 2-year-old, but I think by the time they get to be 3, 4 years old, I think Briar would be old enough that this would work pretty well.
Oh, I'm going to go make a label for the chair that's already down there, ready for this. It's waiting. It's been waiting for this moment. Thank you, Rod. You have helped us. I like the idea of not calling it a timeout, calling it a thinking chair.
Yeah, because again, it's getting them to think about, use your words,
right,
and let's address this because lower your emotion.
Yeah.
And
de-escalate.
And I love it. I mean, we're all going to get mad and angry. Crying out loud, you've ridden with me. So, you know what? I'm going to put myself in the thinking chair as I run your ass off the road.
I don't think that's how it works, Rod. You're supposed to calm down, breathe, and really think and question your motives.
Yeah, my motive is to get home. All right.
And so,
yeah.
Okay.
All right. So the next one, require restitution. This can come in many different ways. Most common is to say, I'm sorry. Apologize. And this is something that my mom and dad made us do all the time. My sisters and I, we would get into fights, arguments, and after it was all said and done, my parents would say, you need to go shake hands and apologize. And if we didn't do it right, do it again like you mean it.
Right.
and it worked. Go say you're sorry. And if you don't, again, you learned quickly that you needed to. Sorry.
Right.
No,
that doesn't cut it.
No, you need to say it like you mean it. And if you can't do that, then we're going to go back to the thinking chair.
Yep.
And so it worked pretty good. And I like this because, and I thought it was interesting that he would address this, that, you're pushing, what are you sorry for?
Right.
Why are you sorry? And again, it's that discipline with behavior modification built in. And I thought it was really great.
And I also think this is helping to create intentionality, because going back to sorry. No, Bristol, I'm sorry for pushing you off the ottoman. Yes, this happened the other day. I'm sorry for pushing you off the ottoman. That must have hurt, and I'm really sorry for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's really being intentional, really thinking about it. Yeah, we're big on that. Like, no, don't just say sorry and don't hide behind your pillow and say sorry. You're going to look at each other in the eye and you will address each other and you will respectfully apologize. And, some people will say this is wrong. I have done this and I will probably continue doing this because I have been in the wrong as a parent. And I have got down on my knees, eye level with my children, and I have apologized for my behavior. Because there have been times I've been out of line because I am not perfect and I get frustrated. And I may have hurt them, not physically. And I learned that a long time ago, and I thought that was really powerful to teach them that, number one, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. And that you got to learn to be a good apologizer.
And I think that leading by example, I've done that in the classroom where I will, you know what? Hey, I totally messed up. I am so sorry. And if I yell at a kid,
right,
I will apologize to that kid. And I'll say, look, you were right. I overreacted. And I hope you can forgive me because I am sorry.
Yes.
And I think it is good for kids to see adults model the behavior. And I think they develop more respect
100%
as a consequence. So
100%. And that teaches, one, leading by example. It teaches how to apologize and the big one, forgiveness. And so, yeah, I think it's powerful. That's it.
All right. Well, I got one more. And this one, again, I go back to my mom and dad. They were not college educated, but yet they did many of these, which makes me wonder just how they were raised. Because, again, I truly believe that we parent like we were parented. But this last one is have your child decide on a fair consequence. And I can remember my parents say, you go to your room and you think of what your consequence should be. And if we don't think it's enough, well, then we'll pick it. And I got to tell you, that was psychologically brilliant. And that's exactly what the doc is saying here.
Yeah.
That if the kid picks the discipline and you kind of put, again, this caveat on there that you're going to pick the punishment, but if we don't think it is appropriate, then we're going to pick it.
Right.
And again, masterful stroke of genius, because I'm pretty darn sure I gave myself more punishment than they would have. And this isn't, like I'm going to give myself 10 spankings. It's more like, okay, what you were late for curfew. So what do you think the consequence should be?
Right.
Well, I should be grounded for 2 weeks. Okay. Then you're grounded for 2 weeks.
Right.
And now you've taken ownership because you've created the consequence. And I kind of like that.
Yeah. I think that's great. So giving them, helping them with decision-making skills, empowering them. But, you're also there to kind of, well, that's maybe not,
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that this would work, for your girls. As much as it would for Braddock's.
No, it wouldn't work. They would come up
because you've got
something that's not a punishment,
right?
Okay, I won't have 2 cookies. I'll only have 1.
Sure. I mean, you can, for little ones, you can set the standards. One of their examples is if you hit, you must sit.
Oh.
Okay. So that's your standard. All right, but as they grow and get to be, 5, 6, 7, 8,
right.
I think now you've already established a history of consequences for certain actions. So now they've got something to build on. Because I'm pretty sure that,
It's smart.
And I love it.
Yeah, that's smart.
So you're building character. And that's what I at the end of the day, I ultimately enjoyed this guy's article or his blog because it is, I like the end result. You're focusing on character development.
Right.
And isn't that the point of discipline?
Right.
Is to change a bad behavior.
Yeah, 100%.
So, but that's all I got.
I think that was, I think those are good, man. Honestly.
So take them for what they're worth. And I'll keep using them in the classroom.
Yeah. Well, and I was just thinking that there's only a few things that you leave this earth with. And that's your character and the impact you made on others.
Very true.
There's a couple other things, but
hey, good words of wisdom.
I think teaching character is so important, and we need more now than ever.
Amen.
To have a generation that understands and develops and deploys great character.
Hey, no argument here.
Anyways, keep doing it in your classroom because I know you're leading the future in that regard.
Yeah, we do what we can. So.
Yes.
Anyway, well, I think we've hit our time limit, probably a little bit more than.
Well, that's all right. A couple minutes, but it's a good one. It's worth it.
All right. Well, then I am going to lead by example and say goodbye.
All right. Until next time, I'm Bryce.
And I'm Rod.
Bye.